Fortnite Battle Royale has been out for just over 2 years as of making this video. In that time span, Fortnite has had 10 different seasons, an absolute mountain worth of weapons, vehicles, items, skins, events, map changes, and so on. Like I showed in the first episode of this series, I am now calling a glitch history. Games that are updated over time can have a really interesting timeline of glitches, bugs, and general wackiness. That said, before we can start talking about the glitched history of Fortnite, it's important to know the broad strokes of how Fortnite came to be. So, Fortnite was first revealed all the way back at the 2011 Spike Video Game Awards with this trailer. It's pretty different from the Fortnite most people know today, seeing as how the focus was on scavenging, building, and surviving against an overwhelming storm of weird-looking zombies. These days, this mode is known as Fortnite Save the World. 6 years later, in June of 2017, Epic Games announced that Fortnite would release free-to-play in 2018, but players who pre-ordered the Founders Pack could play the game in its early access alpha phase as soon as July 25th, 2017. I was actually lucky enough to receive a free code for this version of the game, which I played, and at the time it was a bit underwhelming. It's important to know that at this point, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG, had been out for about 4 months, and much like the rest of the world, Epic Games couldn't help but be intrigued by Battle Royale as a genre, so they assigned a separate development team to work on a Battle Royale game mode for Fortnite using the core assets, gameplay, and so on from the Save the World mode. After just 2 months of development, Epic decided to release Fortnite Battle Royale as a separate free-to-play title. By September 26th, people were dropping out of a floating bus, shooting, building, and so on. I also play this version, doing a couple live streams on my second channel.
I just want to build an honest home and live an honest life.
Overall, it was a pretty fun time. Still, considering how quickly this game was cobbled together, it's no wonder that players quickly found some holes in its design, like quite literally. As you can see in this clip, the foundation of this hut, just east of the then unnamed Salty Springs, could be destroyed, letting players walk underneath the terrain. Like in most games, the ground only has collision on one side, letting nefarious players gun down people with little recourse. For the victims of this exploit, it's easy to see why they would be annoyed. But either way, I know an exploit isn't a glitch, but it's important to highlight that sort of stuff in a retrospective video like this, so here's a blanket mention of hackers. Like a lot of multiplayer shooters, Fortnite has had its fair share of hackers, some using A-bots within just 2 days of Fortnite's release. It's pretty lame. As for the rest of the glitches in this video, while a good deal may have led to player frustration, the hope that I have is that we can enjoy the wackiness of it all in good fun. Just a month after the game's release, on October 25th, we saw the start of Season 1. This was by far the slowest season in terms of content, but we did see the addition of smoke grenades, the bush, a new inventory and UI, and launch pads. That last one was especially interesting as it let players redeploy their gliders after a considerable boost, which didn't always work as intended. While this might not be exclusive to Season 1, players damaged while gliding could enter the down but not out state mid-air, and then the game would just make it look like they're still gliding. The launch pad was also capable of causing a glitch where you get seemingly stuck in the freefall animation, but while walking on the ground. It stuck around for a while, so the footage you're seeing comes from a great tutorial by True North Gaming recorded during Season 3. In this instance of the glitch, you can see that it's activated by using the launch pad but getting stuck immediately by building a pyramid over it. As the clip demonstrates, for this glitch, it's a lot of fun for the user, but everyone else sees them as simply walking around with their building plans out. Okay, so now I would like to talk a little bit about rocket riding, which, hear me out, it might not seem like a glitch because at this point rocket riding is an accepted part of the game, but it was initially considered a bug. In a 2018 interview with Donald Mustard, he explains how after seeing players riding rockets in Fortnite, we had a meeting where we said, okay, clearly we should fix the bug. And then, wait, should we? This is exactly what we've been saying we want, so it's not a bug, it's now a feature. So yeah, it was definitely unintended, but I think it's really cool that they embraced this feature because it led to a lot of interesting moments. Speaking of, a very interesting moment was captured by Devil's Game on YouTube. A player he ended up spectating was nothing more than a floating head. It was hard to find a concrete explanation for this one, but from what I gathered, there was a recurring issue around this point in the game's life cycle where, for whatever reason, some players' heads or bodies would turn invisible, usually one or the other, not both. Season 2 started December 14th, 2017 and lasted until February 21st. This one had a sort of medieval theme and it brought with it just 3 new items: Small Shield Potion, Silence Pistol, and the Boogie Bombs. Unlike Season 1, a number of new locations were added to the map, like Delta Tower, Shifty Shafts, Alliteration Alley, and so on. While the Small Shield Potions were definitely a welcomed addition, the Boogie Bomb was a bit different. These groovy grenades could be used to temporarily prevent those affected from attacking, building, and so on. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a bug where sometimes the boogieing just wouldn't stop. Ah, how the turntables. Now, as you'd expect during the season, there were festivities across the map, but thanks to yet another glitch that would occasionally pop up, the festivities inside the battle bus were just too fun to leave. Basically, sometimes some players found themselves stuck inside the bus, which would eventually boot them out of the game after the bus reached a certain distance away from the island. This is another glitch that isn't limited to Season 2, as I assume it was simply caused by some kind of server error. It's also worth mentioning that this season saw 2 different glitches that involved knockdown players. Firstly, zombies somehow found a way to sneak onto the island, as a glitch allowed some players to continue to shoot while knocked down. This was no doubt extremely annoying for those on the receiving end of this glitch, but as far as I could tell, it was patched before too long. The other knocked glitch was another animation bug. Basically, by getting knocked and revived while in a positionally challenged location, your character would get stuck in a weird crouching position. However, unlike the previously mentioned grounded freefall glitch, this one is only visible to other players and not yourself. Onwards to Season 3, which was themed around space. It was also the start of Fortnite Battle Royale's very weird storyline. As for more tangible additions, it only had 1 new location in the form of Lucky Landing, but a number of new items and weapons. In no particular order, it added the hunting rifle, remote explosives, guided missiles, vending machines, porta-forts, light machine gun, and clinger. The guided missiles were a little bit overpowered, which caused them to get vaulted in just over 2 weeks. Still, in that time, people were able to do some pretty crazy stuff. That said, its massive impact on the game was made only worse by a glitch that would prevent the guided missile from running out of ammo. Ouch. The porta-fort also brought with it some issues. For some, it seemed overpowered due to the sheer impact it can have on a fight thanks to the press of a single button, and for others, it was a glitch that let you use porta-forts without ever running out. All you had to do was throw one and immediately swap it with an item on the ground. While some went around being fort happy, others spammed guided missiles to their heart's content, there was at least a few people subjected to a really weird lighting glitch like the one you can see here. It's quite possible it was caused by some underlying GPU issue, but that doesn't change the fact that this would be really annoying to play with. Now, I'm sure this is already getting old, but here's a glitch that I have no idea how it works. Life glitches in mysterious ways sometimes. Like, for example, this giant gun extending out of Loot Lake. For whatever reason, its model was temporarily made extremely big before suddenly returning to normal. If it's hard to tell what's visible is a section of the old burst assault rifle as seen here. In addition to guns, others were able to witness massive blurred heads. I guess their ego got a bit out of control. And the last of the notable examples of this glitch is just a giant pair of legs. It's not unsettling at all. Now, before moving on to Season 4, it's important to go back to that bit about the storyline. During Season 3, a comet was spotted in the sky, slowly growing in size over time until it was revealed that it was actually a meteor. All clues pointed to it hitting Tilted Towers, and in the final days, small meteorites struck across the map, destroying little bits of the environment, which could be witnessed in-game. From there, Season 4 was subtitled Brace for Impact, and its trailer showed the meteor actually striking Dusty Depot, turning it into Dusty Divot. In addition to that change, the map also had some new locations like Risky Reels, the heroes mentioned, the villain's lair, as well as a small number of various impact sites and little Easter eggs. Now, in terms of new gameplay elements, this season saw a huge boost in mobility with jetpacks, shopping carts, and bouncer traps. There were also a few weapons like the drum gun, dual pistols, a couple more variants of assault rifle, and the stink bomb. As for glitches, there were a lot of issues involving those new mobility options. The shopping cart, while definitely a neat idea, always had the chance of just getting launched into the ocean. As you'll see throughout the video, vehicle-based stuff encourages some very weird physics. The cart was also very useful in letting players clip through objects so they can get out of the map. All you needed was a single ramp, a cart, and a dream. That said, from what I found, there was a related glitch that would immediately end the game. Assuming I'm understanding these clips correctly, if a player fell down under the map, it caused every other player in the game to immediately die. With how crazy this sounds and looks to players, most of the clips attribute it to hackers, which might be the case, I'm not super sure, but either way, it's very weird. The jetpack was also capable of glitching during its brief appearance in the game, though as you can see in this clip, the thruster is just stuck on. It doesn't actually affect gameplay, but that would be pretty annoying. Even more annoying was the bouncer trap's unreliable nature. From what I understand, it's supposed to let you get a nice boost into the air and fall back down without taking any damage, but there's been a long-running bug where some players would just break every bone in their legs upon hitting the ground. Oh, and by the way, on the topic of traps, in the hotfix the day after the bouncer trap was added, Epic also undid a previous change, bringing trap damage all the way up to 150. That was on June 6, 2018. As it happens, I guess traps got a bit too powerful, because in this clip posted to Reddit on June 11th, this player died to a trap that triggered on the ceiling below him. Ouch. Now, before we can talk about the weirdness that is this season's storyline, it's important to bring up Fortnite's first major tie-in, that being the good old Thanos mode, where they added the purple spaceman from Avengers Infinity War into Fortnite, which was, unironically, it was really cool. I enjoyed the mode. So, in this limited time game mode, if players were lucky enough to claim the Infinity Gauntlet for themselves, they become Thanos himself, which means walking slowly, jumping high, and being able to wreak absolute havoc on any nearby players. However, there was a glitch that could pop up, allowing even luckier players to turn into Thanos without ever losing their normal run and gun moveset. I think the only thing scarier than Thanos menacingly emoting towards you is the Thanos sprinting at you, turbo building along the way. Now, plot. So throughout the season, there were a few things going on, told through periodic updates to the map as a whole. Dusty Divot slowly became overgrown with grass and trees, all while the research facility was constructed with the goal of excavating the meteor. At some point, a robo-man named the Visitor broke out of a pod that was inside the meteor and took residence inside the Omega Villain Lair movie set. Using hop rocks, the Visitor turned the prop rocket into a real rocket, culminating in the game's first big live event. As far as I'm aware, this wasn't actually turned into a real cinematic by Epic Games, but especially creative content creators, as seen here, made their own. During this live event, players were able to witness the rocket launching up out of the lair. Before long, the booster broke away and the pod shot off even faster into the sky. After a brief delay, you can see the rocket plummeting back towards the Earth with its targeting laser focused on tilted towers. Just before impact, the rocket was intercepted by a large blue rift that appeared over the small city. It reappears and shoots off across the island, before dissipating through another rift, and then another, and another, before being shot back toward the sky once again, only to open up a giant rift above the island, which kickstarted Season 5 proper. Season 5's main theme was Worlds Collide, with the announcement trailer showing a number of objects disappearing through rifts and the giant Burger appearing out in the California desert. A graffiti artist that was tagging it gets rifted into the game, as does a souped up golf cart, Moai head, carriage, and even an entire Viking ship. Basically, this is Epic going, we're gonna put absolute whatever we want in the game, and you know, I respect the dedication to just embracing the weirdness. Speaking of, the season saw the addition of the ATK, submachine gun, compact SMG, a readjusted guided missile, double barrel shotgun, heavy sniper rifle, rift to go, shock grenades, grappler, suppressed assault rifle, and porta-fortress. At this point, it's important to mention that near the end of Season 4, a limited time mode called the Playground was added, which allowed a party of up to 16 players to have a whole island to themselves, with resources and loot cranked up. These matches could go on for a max of 4 hours, and during Season 5, an item was exclusively added to the Playground mode called the Spiky Stadium. It's like Port Fortress, but it spawns a stadium with spikes. Shoutouts to descriptive names like this video called Crashing a Server with Spiky Stadiums from someone you may know named Laserbeam. Yeah, I guess Fortnite wasn't actually ready for players to, play around and spawn in countless stadiums one after another. Eventually there were enough stadiums at once that the new structure wouldn't even load in visually. I mean, even the Porta-Fortress was capable of lagging out normal matches, as you can see in this clip. But hey, who needs a lagginess when this season gave players 2 different ways to glitch out and walk on the ocean? First off, by launching a guided missile just as you hit a launch pad, you could use the missile launcher as a glider, and whenever you jump, your glider will deploy. Another side effect is that your player can now freely walk on water. The other water walking glitch was even simpler. You just needed to destroy a platform built over the water and launch yourself with the impulse grenade before you get dropped down. Weird glitch physics takes over and you're fine. There was also a glitch involving the shockwave grenade, which, when used, would cause players to destroy objects that they're knocked back into. One weird side effect of the shockwave grenade is that looted chests, once destroyed by the item's effect, would incorrectly drop a whole nother bunch of loot. Now, let's talk about the glitchiest addition thus far. First off, it was possible for the game to desync to some extent, causing the ATK's passengers to seemingly float alongside the vehicle. Also, if you emote while changing seats, it caused your emote to be absolutely massive. This is why I love glitches. Also, like the shopping cart, the ATK could clip right through the ground with even less setup. It's truly all-terrain. And if that wasn't enough, the ATK was also more than capable of being launched right off the map. Taking it a step further, if two different ATKs entered the same rift at the same time, you could get sent so high that you'd become stuck outside the normal bounds of the game, meaning you're no longer able to take damage or die. Only able to look down upon the map and watch those ant-sized players succumb to the elements, a glitch actually deserving of the title of God Mode. Finishing the season off, the rift could also glitch if multiple players walked into it at the same time, which, as seen here, causes a whole squad to get stuck floating up in the air. But hey, that's a great vantage point to look down and witness this series' storyline. So this season by far had the most individual plot-related things happen thus far, so here are the broad strokes. Throughout the month of August, the large rift in the sky shrunk until August 24th when lightning strike shot out of the rift, striking various cacti in the southeast part of the map, with one final extended strike leaving behind a mysterious purple cube. Not long after appearing, this giant cube began moving across the map, crushing players that were unlucky enough to be caught in its path. For almost a month, it moved bit by bit, leaving runes imprinted on the ground along the way, before arriving at the edge of Loot Lake. Throughout this time, users on the Fortnite Battle Royale subreddit tracked the cube's movement in a big mega thread when a comment was made by Kai Vidian that read, "I think we should come up with a name for it other than the cube. Sounds boring. Let's call it something fun, like Kevin." Less than a day later, completely independently, user 6ace posted this clip with the title, "Kevin Climbing the Hill. He's growing up so fast." It got pretty popular, so eventually the cube's name was just Kevin, made official by multiple little references from Epic Games themselves down the road. Now that we've properly humanized Kevin, let's talk about his sort of death, reincarnation, evolution? I don't know. From the edge of Loot Lake, Kevin rolled forward into the water, sinking down into it, causing its purple Kevinness to spread out across the entire lake. This caused the lake to take on the purple bounciness that Kevin was made out of. It's from this point that Season 6 started, with its trailer depicting Kevin reforming under the central island, causing it to raise high into the air. The subtitle for this season is Darkness Rising, which saw the additions of loads of spooky stuff, which makes a lot of sense considering that we just entered October of 2018. In terms of items, we saw the addition of Shadow Stones, pets, the Chiller Trap, Quad Launcher, Quad Crasher, balloons, mounted turret, dynamite, and a couple other standard weapons. At this point, I'm sure there were still plenty of weird super launch glitches taking place, models glitching out all over, but I'm gonna try to focus on just new stuff so we're not here for another hour. First off, using the new balloons, while on the passenger seat of the Quad Crasher, you can float up to the height's limit and then dismount the vehicle. This would cause you to technically clip up and out, making you get stuck in place. The balloons also had a very weird interaction with supply drops. If you line yourself up under a supply drop using its shadow, float up with the balloons, you would then stop when your head bonks into the supply drop. The crate would also stop, so you both just sort of end up awkwardly floating there. Now, as for a playground exclusive glitch, if you drove an ATK off a cliff and landed in the ocean upside down, when you respawned your character would be stuck upside down. It's pretty neat, but otherwise useless. On the other hand, there was a glitch involving the newly added Shadow Stones. These items located near corrupted runes would allow you to enter a shadow form where you're invisible to enemies while stationary, move faster, jump higher, fall without taking damage, and phase through objects. However, throughout all this, you could not use your weapons. If you got knocked down just as you consumed this stone, you'd maintain the invisible body, but be able to otherwise play like normal. This also worked in the playground, where the respawn feature made it much easier to perform. Lastly, this season saw a weird exploit that allowed players to destroy entire buildings with this one simple trick. So if you attached a floor to a structure, edited out the two tiles so that it's floating, and immediately edited it back, it became glitched. Adding another part to connect the glitch section to the ground, you could then destroy it, which makes the game go, "Oh, that's right, I should break." But this would extend to the rest of the structure that you started next to. Surprisingly simple and easily abusable. Name a more obnoxious combination of attributes. Oh, right, plot. By now, Epic had a pretty solid pattern for its season. The event at the start influences some sort of periodic change throughout the season, culminating in a big event by the end that led to some sort of major change. For this season, the Kevin-powered floating island that rose out of Loot Lake at the start floated all over the island, stopping at the various ruins to absorb weird space energy, before eventually returning to float above what is now Leaky Lake. On October 24th, Kevin blew up the island, fracturing it into 3 different sections. From the 26th to the 31st, more and more cracks started appearing across the cube, with further deterioration happening until November 4th when Kevin just straight up got murdered, aka he exploded. As you can see in this eyewitnesses footage, the explosion drew every player on the map into a pocket dimension called the In-Between, where they just were sort of stuck floating in an expansive white space before a butterfly formed from the same essence of the rift landed on each player's hand, returning them to the island near the remains of Kevin. I know I'm not explaining the finer details of what this all means, but that's a job for someone else, okay? It's still neat though, that's for sure. By the time Season 7 rolled around, it was the holiday season, and the trailer was surprisingly festive, cozy even. But looks like the show and the game was interrupted by a giant iceberg sliding onto the island, with jolly old Sergeant Winter and his army of slushy soldiers coming in ready for battle. The theme or subtitle for this season is "You Better Watch Out," which is not threatening at all. In addition to the various changes across the map, this season brought with it even more stuff, like the presents that can contain some neat weapons and items, the boombox, chiller grenades, bottle rockets, and zip lines located across the map, and even 2 different vehicles, the Driftboard and the X-Force Stormwing. Around this time is also when Fortnite Creative came out proper, where players each have their own personal items to create in, and they could submit their creations, which would be featured in a 25 by 25 block wide section of the map called the Block. It's pretty neat. Onwards, while I'm not aware of a particular glitch that was directly tied into it, the Infinity Blade is an item that was added on December 11th, and I should probably talk about it. So this was a mythic item that spawned on Polar Peak, able to deal 75 damage to players per slash and destroy structures in a single blow. You could also leap huge distances, which would also destroy any objects in your path. If you want to see it in action, check out these clips from the finals of the 2018 Winter Royale, an online solos event hosted by Epic with a total prize pool of $1 million.
Oh my word! He has picked up 8 eliminations, 10 eliminations!
There's a lot of these clips from the tournament, so I'll just keep those rolling as we talk about this next bit. On December 13th, 2 days after it was added, Senior Communications Manager at Epic, Nathan Mooney, posted a write-up responding to the Infinity Blade's criticisms. This post received a total of 5,000 comments and a total vote score of 0. I have no clue where in the negative it is, but I'm sure it's down there. Either way, 1 day later, so 3 days after it was added, Epic rightfully decided to vault the Infinity Blade. That little story over. Glitches. So like I mentioned before, this season brought with it various zip lines added throughout the map, which would allow players to ride up or down, traversing certain distances very quickly. However, this didn't always work correctly. Like for example, this player tried using it but ended up quickly dismounting, which got him into a glitch sort of state where his jumps made the magnet appear over his head, stopping the jump immediately, which would be pretty annoying, but he then goes to reconnect and the zipline makes him travel the wrong distance, way too quickly, and there's no recovering from that one. In this clip, the player had the absolute audacity to try to use the zipline while on a ramp, which made him get launched into the ocean. Serves him right for using the mechanic as intended. Going back to the initial weird dismounts in the first clip, that actually puts you into a state where any object you touch will immediately get destroyed. It could also be activated through other means, and all you needed to do to fix it was use a zipline again, but either way, it was very impactful. And the last zipline glitch related to the Rift to Go item, tossing one of those suckers while standing under a zipline will make you go zipping off into the ocean. How fun. Now, the last of the glitches I got for the season are all vehicle related. So first off, if you flip a quad crasher or any vehicle, so that it lands solidly upside down, stand on top of it, go through a rift, and immediately get on, you'll then eventually land, but your character is sitting upside down underneath it. It's like advanced low riding. At this point, I should also just mention that vehicles have way too much chaotic energy just built into them, as demonstrated in this clip. Also, the Stormwing had its own glitches, like for example this pilot having way too much fun. You could even sit on a Stormwing's wing and carefully destroy an interconnected wall, which turned your plane invisible because of course it would. Oh, and you know the driftboard? Just toss it and optional yourself right into the ocean. Now, while the plot of this season wasn't as complex as previous seasons, it was still very weird. Leading up to a particular event, there was a countdown on TVs across the island which, well, counted down to the appearance of an ice sphere up above Polar Peak. On January 19th, 2019, the Ice King broke out of his frozen prison, summoning a giant apparition of himself. He then uses his magical edgelord powers to summon forth a blizzard, which swept across the island, kickstarting the Ice Storm event, which lasted 10 days. Oh, and let's take a quick break from the whole plot thing, just like Epic did, to mention that on February 2nd, there was a 10-minute long concert held at Pleasant Park in-game twice, once at 11 a.m. PST and the other at 11 p.m. PST. The concert was primarily for Marshmello, though a couple other artists were featured in a setlist. I actually really enjoy Marshmello's music, but I can't actually play any here because, copyright. I remember hearing about this event just after it happened, and it sounded absolutely ridiculous. Like, really dumb. Actually seeing footage of it, it's actually pretty neat, and definitely a really cool concept, so kudos to all those involved for making this happen. Now, back to the plot. Starting near the end of January, the ice started melting over time, allowing some mysterious being to escape from Polar Peak. There were also earthquakes occurring during the last half of February, which caused a number of cracks to form across the map. There were 25 cracks that formed, with the 26th being the largest of all of them, appearing throughout Tilted Towers. New season, new map. There's now a giant volcano in the northeastern part of the map. This one is primarily pirate themed, with the subtitle being X marks the spot. You know that person who escaped their icy prison? Well, they're the prisoner, or the unofficial Fire King. It's a whole mess of stuff, but with jungles. There's of course some new weird stuff like a poison trap, the Boombo reboot van, the treasure map, and even a new vehicle called the Baller. As you can see in this tutorial by Orange Guy, simply attach to a cliff, carefully lower yourself down bit by bit with the integrated grappler, and when you see the splash effect, disconnect, and boom, it's free balling time. There was also a very easy way to take flight using the Baller and this lava fall inside the volcano. Using the Baller, you could also do whatever the hell this move is. You could also use the Baller in various techniques to glitch into first-person mode, as Shotgun Plays demonstrates in this video. I played Fortnite in first-person mode using this glitch. Actually, a very accurate title. While having a gun in your first slot, pilot the Baller, look up, jump, and drop the gun, and exit. If done correctly, you'd see from, well, the first person. This means you can walk around, look at your feet, even ride around on various vehicles, which all in all actually looks pretty neat. Switching gears a bit, one of the new vehicles is actually a pirate cannon, which would let you launch either cannonballs or yourself at enemies. While it had its own host of weird bugs, one of the oddest involved the cannon and creative mode. The earliest tutorial I found was from Retaliate, posted on March 2nd. I did find some examples later on that worked outside of creative mode, but we'll go with this one. The main point here is to build to the sky limit and place a gallery that has a ramp. Then, by placing a cannon and moving it up the ramp, you'd be just outside of what the game considers the creative island. This forcibly removes you from the cannon, but if you quickly get back on, you'd enter a glitched state. From there, if you enter the cannon proper, aim straight down, and exit the vehicle, your camera will now be completely broke. It's from here that he demonstrates how you can turn it around freely and even start flying to lock your camera in this new angle. That alone would be pretty cool, but this actually let you build sideways, or I suppose potentially even upside down, which is actually really cool considering that in creative mode these weird builds could be saved and shared with friends. There were also two major animation related things. First off, it's important to know that until now, every emote required you to stand still. The conga emote was added in Season 8, and it's the first traversal emote, aka it's jazzy enough to let you emote while moving. This had some unintended effects, like for example letting you dance your way across lava without ever taking damage. You could also use emotes while on the icy fields near Polar Peak to slide infinitely, assuming it's an emote that loops. This will carry on even after you're off the ice, with your emote stopping as soon as you do something that interrupts the emote like jumping or falling. Just a warning though, this glitch may be too powerful. Now as for the season's major event, there was a countdown at Loot Lake, which culminated in a large vault opening up. Like moths to a flame, players were drawn in by the intrigue at first, and then forcibly back into the in-between that I mentioned earlier. However, rather than floating in endless expanse, there were 6 vaulted items contained within pillars. There was the Stormwing, Infinity Blade, Grappler, Bouncer, Drum Gun, and Tactical Machine Gun. Players were then free to break free whichever vaulted item they want, in essence voting on an item to be unvaulted, which ended up being the Drum Gun. After an item was broke free, all players were ejected from the in-between and shot high into the air to witness the volcano exploding. The fallout from this destroyed parts of Retail Row, Polar Peak, and most of Tilted Towers. This of course led into Season 9, the trailer for which depicted 2 characters, a recruit named Jonesy and a humanoid banana named Peely, taking refuge in a bunker following the volcano's eruption. It's all fun and games until, oh no, there's no food! But is there? It's presumably years later, and a trio of characters open the vault to see a disheveled Bunker Jonesy drinking Peely from a glass. This subtitle is "The Future is Yours," and there has been a bunch of neat, futuristic upgrades throughout the map. Like, for example, Neo Tilted replaced Tilted Towers, Retail Row became Mega Mall, and so on. As for items, we got the Chug Splash, Storm Flip, Airstrike, Proximity Grenade Launcher, and a few other different Rudy Tooty point and shooties. At this point, the game's been out for so long that who knows how many glitches I've missed at this point, probably lots. Either way, here's a few of them. The bush has been in the game all this time and it's finally useful, or useless, with a glitch. For a time, the new Chug Splash item wouldn't heal players wearing the bush. There was also the reboot van. I mean, it was added in Season 8, but I'm sure this was an issue before, but either way, you can see this clip featuring Mixer's greatest Fortnite player, Ninja. His teammate's reboot card got stuck in the ground. I think it's actually pretty neat that they copied not only the feature, but the bug as well from Apex Legends. And the last neat glitch I'd like to bring up involved a new creative exclusive item called the Prop-O-Matic. Much like the classic prop hunt of old, this weapon let you transform into all types of items. One way to do this glitch involves transforming into an object with the size that you'd like to be, backing up the island and restoring it. When you do so, it will now be the size of whatever item you transformed into, but able to freely run around like normal. As you might expect, this could look very, very goofy. Now for this game's plot. So for this one, in response to some giant unseen monster escaping from the iceberg below Polar Peak, a giant robot was constructed at the pressure plant. The name for this robot would later be deemed Mecha Team Leader, with some real big Power Ranger energy. Construction took just over 2 weeks, leading to a live event on July 20th, 2019. The event starts with the giant creature emerging from the sea. His name is Caddis, and every time I look at the castle on his back, it almost looks like a top hat. From there, players had front row seats to one epic monster showdown. Unironically though, it's actually a pretty badass fight, made even better with Enzeit's high quality cinematography. That was awesome! Oh wait, never mind. The floss ruined it. Following that event, the orb above Loot Lake, also known as the 0 Point, became less and less stable. Season 10 quite literally started off with a bang, and the 0 Point exploded, causing good old Jonesy to get sucked in. Basically, everything is in here. Vaulted items, past points of interest, Kevin, the butterflies, all that stuff. Season 10, or Season 10 but with Roman numerals, is subtitled Out of Time. Basically, that explosion messed with time and the map is all kinds of messed up. Dusty Divot has returned and the giant meteor that originally destroyed it is stuck, frozen in time, just above it. Throughout the season, there were a number of rift beacons constructed across the map, which would periodically create rift time bubbles where the locations inside the bubble is like it used to be. While Epic was messing around with the time-space continuum, they also made sure to spend some time designing and releasing a brand new vehicle.
This made a lot of people very angry and has been widely regarded as a bad move.
Hey, that's just like people's opinions, man. We're just here to have funny ha-has at some of the glitches. Like, for example, the mecha can allow you to walk on water, because of course it can. It could also be used to go very, very, very fast. It's basically backwards long jumping. Oh, and very similar to the X4 Stormwing, it can even be turned invisible, but this time with way more firepower. Of course, a lot of these glitches are very weird bugs, but sometimes the glitches aren't even glitches. What I'm saying is, all the way here in Season 10, Epic accidentally placed a hay bale located under Frenzy Farm. While the prompt is invisible, with a little know-how and button spamming, you can find the bale, go out of bounds, and then jump out to go swimming out under the map. Luckily, while swimming like this, you can't actually use weapons, so it's not as abusable as the god modes of old, but one would hope that this thing would stop being an issue by this point. Regardless, Season 10 was very much Epic's attempt at a conclusion to what we later know as Fortnite Chapter 1. The final live event of Season 10 occurred on October 13th, 2019. It started much like Season 4's event did, with a rocket launching into the sky, but this time from Dusty Depot. Much like before, it gets rifted away, but before it reappears, the rest of the rifts in the sky can be seen glowing and expanding. 6 new rockets also appear, rifting around until all 7 of them rift away, one after another. These 7 rockets then exit from behind the frozen meteor and enter another rift in front of it, repeating faster and faster in order to give the meteor enough energy to unfreeze and move through the rift itself. One final rift appears above the 0 point, and a singular rocket leads the charge, colliding with the 0 point's force field, which causes a shockwave that flings every player on the map out into the air. From there, they get to witness the final moments of Fortnite, because due to the work of Epic Games, this was the end. Well, not really. So the black hole formed in those final moments was strong enough to suck in all of reality itself, which Epic Games backed up by temporarily taking down the game. For players in the lobby, even they experienced the black hole affecting their game. This event, actually called The End, was live streamed on the official twitch.tv Fortnite page, and it featured Dr. Lupo's live view of the live event. As soon as his and everyone else's screens faded to black, the black hole is what anyone who tried to play Fortnite would see for the next 40-something hours, and the livestream primarily stayed on this for that the whole time as well. People freaked out. Memes were made, and it was general chaos and confusion. It wasn't until the 39-hour and 55-minute mark that Dr. Lupo's stream faded back into view, and he was just loading up the game after all this time. An anxious load later, the black hole quickly collapses to reveal the cutscene for Fortnite Chapter 2. With that, this glitched history of Fortnite Chapter 1 has come to an end. For those who watched this whole video and have been with the game for any length of time, I hope I did it justice. And for those who maybe watched the whole video and never played the game or stopped early on like me, I hope this was interesting. Personally, I really enjoyed making this video because it was really interesting to see how far Fortnite has come in such a small amount of time. On top of that, as a non-player for most of the season, I was most blown away by how many changes occurred throughout the seasons, and a number of the live events were actually really cool. All that said, who knows what Fortnite has in store for the rest of its future, but this is where we'll end this glitched history of Fortnite Chapter 1. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, leave a like, comment, whatever you want, it all helps. This video took way too long to make, but hopefully it was enjoyable. Big thank you to my channel members for being awesome, and especially big thanks to Christy Huntress and Pseudonymous for being superfans. That's it for this one, I'll see you in the next video.